We're not going to be in that Senate chamber in order for us, to have this conversation. But it is these civic spaces that we've created where we can begin to have conversations. Because if we are truly serious about building a democratic Zimbabwe, the moment that we are faced with is a serious moment, is a painful moment. But organizations that know what to do, or to a citizen that know what to do, the moment can be painful, but it can be a necessary moment to allow you to audit these organizational architectures. In terms, I'm referring to the opposition entities. Whatever creature that is going to be created in the opposition, the problem must not be that an individual is going to defect, but the problem must be that individuals are being allowed to become single points of failure. Kuti wana nangoda so chete all hell breaks loose. Chimfyesa chatodhakwa. An individual is not an organization. One can go. But the moment it teaches us that an individual must never be allowed to be a single point of failure. We must not centralize everything in one person such that if anything goes wrong, then all hell breaks loose. This woman here, she was being tasked with managing executive access, if you want to say it, coordinating election logistics, if you want to say it, handling agents, payouts, if you want to say it, and sitting in multiple strategic rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, one who occupies all this position is not a display of loyalty. That right there is structural negligence. Structural negligence. Because the idea of an organization does not create single points of failure. If one goes, so be it, the organization survives and moves on. If you want to have a situation where an individual can manage executive access, coordinate election logistics, handle even agents, election agents payout, and sit in these multiple rooms, strategic multiple rooms, that person is not displaying any loyalty to you at all. Never. It's strategic. It's structural negligence. And when that happens, we create, paranoia, which is exactly what, this regime wants. Because once we have paranoia, we are going to paralyze, the organization. We are going to destroy trust. And once trust goes, collapses, an organization goes, an organization collapses. So what are we talking about? What are we saying is the antidote? I read what Ostalos wrote. Professional intelligence and counterintelligence, hinting into the aspect of rigorous vetting and continuous re-vetting of individuals. Because you cannot have somebody who's coming into an organization and then a few months down the line, that person is living in a life of luxury. You should be in a position to re-vet. When you vetted them, they were coming from a shinyeda. And within a short space of time, they are now living the life of Gertrude Badza. You need to read that. It's all about knowing who to trust with the responsibilities and being in a position to ensure a rotation of the responsibilities. Bring about verification systems that do not rely on personality or on personal loyalty alone. Because one thing that we have seen with our movements, one has to be loyal, or they have to be seen to be the one that speaks the loudest. They want to be seen as the one who's vocal, and that right there qualifies them to get into the game. And we end up creating institutions or structures where an individual is revered to a level we cannot do without this person. Individuals are come and go. If we have these antidotes, it creates institutional security. I'm not saying these are all that can be done, but serious movements, that's how they move. That's how they operate. You can do a leak-proof institution. You can build a leak-proof institution as long as there is institutional security operating at a level that it is supposed to be operating. I'm not saying that there's never going to be it's going to be foolproof such that there's never going to be any infiltration, but you should be in a position to survive an infiltration, because that this is what this is all about. Democratic struggles, ladies and gentlemen, they need to survive infiltration. Otherwise, they would implode. They would go kaboom. If you can't survive infiltration as an alternative, you might as well you might as well, get up from the table and leave altogether. Put your hand down, get up from the table and leave and disappear. So, you know what? I'm not here to talk about personalities. I'm not here to be debating personalities. If it happens, I'll try and refocus, people into the conversation. The spat between Wopo and Chamisa, that disagreement must never be used as a way of dividing us, but it should sharpen us as a people. Because if you want to be honest, one is emphasizing the brutality of the system, and the other is kind of emphasizing the fragility of our structures. And both of those two perspectives, they matter. But the real question, ladies and gentlemen, why I said beyond paranoia, building leak-proof democratic institutions. The real question is, what do we build now? How do we create institutions that cannot be compromised by a single defection? How do we protect our grassroots networks when a higher level official crosses the floor? How do you maintain hope amongst people, amongst citizens, when the regime uses co-optation as a psychological welfare? It requires people who are sober-minded. It requires people who are strategic. It requires people who are solution-driven. Because I think, we've gotten now to a point whereby whatever it is, that comes, out there, It must never create an environment for a debate that does not go anywhere. But we must get to a point whereby we begin to be talking about how do we build these leak-proof democratic institutions, like what Ostalos, said. Operating within a country where infiltration is not only a possibility but a guarantee. Because we can't build this if it is infiltrated, we break it. We go on, we build another one, and if we do not remedy the mistakes of the previous one, we are going to face, the same, situation that we are building it, infiltrated, and it breaks down. So, for how long are we going to be continuously be renewing ourselves? Or probably maybe it's now time up for the folks, that exist now. It's now time up, for them to call it quits and let a new breed of opposition politicians come into the mix and help us build, Zimbabwe, or build an alternative that can dislodge ZANU-PF. So as a request, the mic, ladies and gentlemen, are opening, the floor as a request, the mic. I want us to be thinking, very hard about this idea of building how these leak-proof democratic institutions are built, especially within an environment like ours, where it is a possibility. I mean, it is a guarantee that infiltration, will happen.